And, I'm just coming to the end of grain here. I'm actually wet conditioning for the first time. So it's just using a little bit of water just to dampen down the grain before you mill it. So let's say about 2%. I probably used a bit close to the 3%, but anyway, so be it. Anyway, this is our grain bill. Today's brew. That's our grain bill. Conditioned. I'm going to get the mill out. Get this stuff milled up. I'm not actually brewing this. It's Saturday Ave. I'm just getting ready. I'm going to brew first thing tomorrow morning. So just getting this ready. So I'll mill this up and see it mashing. Okay, well the husks do seem to be in a bit more intact, and there seems a good amount of bloody flour out of that as well. So the husks seem to be sort of more intact. Even though they're opened up, but more intact than they are when you go dry. So now this actually feels like it feels dry. There's no moisture I can sense in there. But anyway, so interested to see how that goes. Hey, morning folks. Little John in the brewery. Sunday morning. It's nice and early. It's just nearly up past 7. As you've seen, I've just mashed in on today's brew. Weatherman's telling me it's a lovely -3 degrees outside. First real cold morning of winter. Well, not the winter's here yet, but we've done pretty well to get this far into certainly into autumn before we start hitting minus temperatures. So on the coffee bright and early. So fire the computer up here. Get up and look what we were brewing. Now that went through on the start there with the grain. Sort of ran through what was there, but we'll have a bit more of a chat about the actual grain and the beer that we're brewing today. What's going on? So before I do that, big shout out to Little John's Patreons. As always guys, thank you very much for your support, keeps the channel going. If you're interested, hit the link down below, see what Patreon's all about. There's bonus videos, and there's monthly prizes, recipes and things that go along with that. So the main thing is, it keeps the channel going, lets little John experiment with things that are going on. So, while we're going, if you subscribe, thank you. If you're not, hit the subscribe button down there in the corner. Get notified when any videos are on, and also hit the like button because that helps me out as well. And I think a lot of brewers have been keen to get this one, see this one happen. So let's move on and actually talk about the beer that's going on today. Now, I'll keep on moving here because I need to get something, need to get this going. But today I am brewing red IPA. Now, I've talked quite a while about how much I like the former tenant from Modus Operandi, and also the Red Nut from Ben Spoke. These two beers specifically. Two red IPAs. Two beers that are quite popular. They both score very well in the craft top 100. I think the reality is they're probably the top two red IPAs by memory. And yeah, some of my favourite beers. So I've been wanting for a while to clone these, or at least make something similar. So I'll start with that. This is not an attempt to clone either of these beers. I have looked around at recipes for both of these beers, which I can't get. I can get some pointers and some guidance. As in, I know that the Ben Spoke uses particular kinds of hops and what the IBU is and the alcohol, but other than that, and the Modus, I haven't been able to get a lot of information on either. But it's enough to get me a starting point. So between that, looking at a few recipes online for red IPAs, I've come up with my own brew. Now, I've actually finally pulled the trigger and actually got myself a full paid version of Brewzilla. So I had avoided it. I had been continuing to use Brewmate, which I've been using since I started All Grain, and even before All Grain. But it is really limited now when it comes to Whirlpool and dry hopping and trying to calculate what that brings to your beer. And given that so many beers currently are dry hopped and whirlpooled and flamed out, that's a very handy thing to have. So I had the free version, but I finally decided to up it to get the extra benefits. And one of those features is the brew day, so let's get that happening. We got going to brewing. Now I don't know, I haven't worked out how to get this stuff on the screen for you guys to watch while I'm doing it, so I just want to get this up and going quickly, because I can. Okay, it's telling me to get the mash up. Heat mash water to 65 degrees. It's only 24.66 litres. Now I mashed it, started with 22, and I think I added about an extra litre towards the end there, just to get that last little bit of grain wet. So I'm happy with that. It tells me to continue. Yeah, it's got all my mash additions, which include the malt, which is 2.81 kilos of Gladfield lager malt. I'm sure I changed that, it's Pilsner malt. It hasn't stayed there. Anyway, close enough, I'll change that before I finish again. 1.62 kilos of Gladfield ale malt, 1.11 kilos of Munich, 300 grams of Cara Munich 2, 110 grams of roasted barley, and 20 grams of Carafa 2. Now, that is, again, I said, it's a breakdown of, sort of a mash up of a couple of different recipes that I've seen for the style. So, obviously the thinking behind it is trying to get a, not a light, but a reasonably, not a big heavy base, but also getting that red colour in there, but getting some deep maltiness. And that's where the Munich's going to really come in. Is it gets that's going to produce a lot of the red and get that nice depth of malt character, balancing out with the Pilsner malt. So the Pilsner is going to do the bulk of our wort creation, so give us a light base, and then we can sort of layer on top of that, which is where it sort of split that, bring the ale malt in. A little bit of Cara Munich 2. I would have preferred to use just Cara Munich, but I had the Cara Munich 2 here. It's going to help with the red tinge as well, and also give some, a little bit of intense caramel note underneath the finish. Roasted barley, again, it's just bring up a little bit of colour, but also bring a little bit of that, really depth into the flavour. And the Carafa 2 is something I've not really seen anywhere. So it's just, as I was going for the grain, I had it there. It adds a nice little note as well. So it's just a touch in there. It may not. I really don't know if it's even going to be noticeable, but it does tend to add a little bit of a red tinge as well. So that's our mash. Grain bill. I've got it in. I've actually got it set here for 65. I've got the Robo Brew at 66, just to allow for any temp differences. That's close enough. 2 litre water. Now, this is a 17 litre batch. So I couldn't. It's actually lucky I didn't even think of it. I originally put a 23 litre batch into the system, into the brew father. But then I got to the end and went, hang on, I don't think I've got enough Munich. So I've had to scale it back to bring it to a point where the Munich was still staying at the same level that I'd wanted, which got me to 17 litres, which turns out real good, because as you saw with the mashing, the Robo Brew is pretty full. That's a just under 7 kilo mash, so it's getting up the upper end of the scale for what you're going to get in there comfortably. And as you can see, it's in there, but it's not, I wouldn't call it comfortable. But so it's probably a good thing, because I certainly wasn't going to get what was required for 23 litres in there. I've also added to that mash for the water, which I put on yesterday afternoon. I've added 2 grams of calcium sorbate to help with the chlorine and the removal of the chlorine. There was, I think, it's not here. Why is it not listing that there? Go back to the recipe. It's not showing. Okay. Oops, it hasn't stayed there. 0.2 of a gram of sodium metabisulfate. Basically half a Campton tablet. the Campton tablets actually have the powder, so that's gone in. 2.5 grams of calcium chloride, 3 grams of Epsom salts, magnesium, and 3.5 grams of gypsum, or calcium sulfate. So I've given the chemicals a fair nudge. It's a solid brew, so it should handle that without any issue. Brewfather's telling me that's pushing to a slightly dry and bitter edge, which I think is going to work. I think that's fine for the style. So, but as I said, this is first run. We've got to see where we end up at. So, but this is where we're going. So the water numbers are all out of whack here. Don't know what the fuck's going on. It's telling me 24.66 litres mash water and 1.26 litres Sparge water for a total of just under 26 litres. Now, well, that might be right actually. 26, got 7 kilos, well there's 4. It's 22. Yeah, actually it's probably right. Obviously we've gone to 17 litres, it doesn't leave me much room for a Sparge, but I've probably got an extra litre and a half, so I can probably go closer to 3 litres of Sparge water. Given the lot that I've mashed in that little bit lower, so that's all good. So we're running at the moment. I'm about to go and put the pump on, get a recirc happening. I don't know how recirculation is going to go. I've got no rice hulls in here, but as you've seen with the grains, I've wet conditioned, which is the first time I've wet conditioned. So there's a lot of things going on in this brew which I haven't really done before. As I said, the sodium metabiosalt, the Campton tablets I've not used before. Actually, so I missed. There's 3 mils of lactic acid, which again is something I've not used before. Trying to bring the pH down a little bit. So got those 2 factors. So I'm interested to see how they work. I've calculated the recipe off a 63% efficiency, which is around the mark I normally get for a bigger grain bill and for a lot smaller volume. So it'll be interesting to see what effect the combination of the grain bill and the lactic acid, and that bit lower pH has on the actual final numbers and how the efficiency goes. But again, it's sort of big enough brew that's going to be really hard to tell what does what at the end of the day. The reality is I'm just hoping to getting all these things together, doing all the right things. And by all the right things, I mean like doing all the things that realistically you probably should be doing with grain brew to make sure we're getting the best result. Looking after the grain, looking after the water, looking after our numbers, our pHs, and hopefully then with a good juice pitch at the end, and an oxygen-free ferment, that we get a nice product first time around, and then only look from there to where we can get our minor tweaks and things going forward. So that's me for the moment. I'm going to get this pump running, I'm going to eat my breakfast, and I'll be back as we're progressing and see how we're travelling. Right, we're coming along nicely. Just the end of the mash in, just raised temp to 72 degrees. Now, just been taking watching the pump. It's running slowly and circulating fine. It's not getting caught up. Right, that's going through. Quite adequately. I did increase it a little bit, but it was just slowly creeping up, so I just nudged it back. But there's a nice little movement on the surface. That mash step was initially meant to be 60 minutes. It actually went to 1 hour and 10 because it took me 10 minutes to actually start the timer on Brewzilla, and I'm just running off this just for today, just to see how it goes. So I'm just leaving it run. I'm not too worried. Extra 10 minutes, it's not going to really hurt anything. Now what I've done is I've gone through is I've kept a track of how our gravity's tracking, and I took tried to get a pH reading. I've only got papers. Brewzilla's given me an estimated mash pH of 5.35. Yeah, going off the papers, I'm probably somewhere around 5.4, maybe 5.45. So I'm pretty happy with that. Probably indicates that I could possibly go an extra milliliter of the lactic acid going forward. So as I said, I don't have an accurate pH meter, but that's close enough for me. I'm not worried about nailing it precisely. I'm not going to go by a pH meter. That's too much fucking around. But anyway, so I'm happy with that. As long as I'm below that sort of 5.5, I think you're in a range that you've got to be happy with. So, refrac readings. This is where things got really interesting. Took first refrac it was 8:03. So I'd started. It was 7:26 and I actually started mashing in by memory, somewhere around there. So it was about it's 8:49 now, so it was about 7:40, about 7:36. Took me about 10 minutes to get all the mashing done and whatnot. But anyway, so about 20 minutes into the mash, I've taken refrac reading, and that came in at 10:61. Now, my target pre-boil gravity is 1055, and I've only got the 3 litres of Sparge with. So that gravity number is not going to come down a hell of a lot. I've got 23 litres, I only added 3 litres in. It's only 1/8. So at 61, 7, well, that'll bring me to 1050, about 1054. So which is sort of in the range, but as we've continued on, I kept taking refrac reading. 20 minutes after that was at 1070. I've just taken one then, as I've ramped the temperature up, got 1073. Now, I'm not one to completely believe the refrac reading when they're a bit warmer, but it's generally fairly close. So, I mean, without taking an actual hydro sample, I don't know exactly where I'm at. But I'll let this mash out run for 20 minutes. I'll grab a sample out of that point, which I will do cool and actually do a hydro sample on while it's coming to a boil. So I can get an idea whether I need to water down in the boil itself. So looking at the moment that I've run the numbers and it looks like I've dialed things back up to closer to that 70 efficiency, and possibly a little bit over by the time we allow for the boil. So given I'm looking for an original gravity of 1066 off the recipe, yeah, so fiddling tells me 70. So for me it would appear that wet conditioning and playing with the pH, whether together or individually, has certainly increased the efficiency that I would normally get. And not only does it appear to improve the efficiency, I've got steady flow through the mash. Now it's not fast, but I don't care. I'm not worried about how fast it is. It's recircling, which means over an hour and 20, an hour and a half, through the mash. I'm getting that water's flushing through, several times, which is all it needs to do. So that's a good thing. I'm really happy with that. So let this go there. I'll come back when we look at getting Sparge on. We pull the malt pipe, and we'll see at that point how well it drains to get a Sparge on. But right about now I need to get my hot plate out and get this, actually I don't use the hot plate, just use the kettle, and warm up the Sparge water to 80 degrees, ready to go. Alright, mash is done. Mash in, mash out. Mash out's now actually run for 30 minutes all up. It's coming up to 30 minutes. I've got the Sparge water ready at 78 degrees. If I get to 80, but 78 will do me nicely, so we'll get that underway while we've got that water in the right place. Now I've just taken a small sample for stuck in the freezer so I can get a hydro reading. Well, that's draining fairly quickly. Which I sort of half expected it was going to. So we've got 3 litre of Sparge water in there. That's dropping pretty fast. We're down to the bed already. Now I haven't got the top screen on today's mash. I haven't had it on the whole time. I've left it off. So I just got to be careful not to dump this too quickly through the grain. But I also want to make sure that I've got the Sparge water above the grain bed as well to make sure we're flushing everything out. So it's slow, slow and steady type of thing. And there's the time. I tell you that 30 minutes is up. And it's time to Sparge. I've got a little bit ahead of it. That's all good. Sparge water's in. Okay, so we'll get this come up to a boil. So brew fibre works really well. It's got the with the timers and the alarms. And you can set your mash time, your mash out, all your steps, and it gives you an alarm countdown and gives you an alarm when you get to them. And obviously this is part of what you spend your extra $26, $27 Australian a year on a subscription for. So it's coming to a boil. Let this finish draining. Pop back over to the table, we'll sit down and we'll have a chat about hops. Okay, so just checking where brew fiber's going, so it's telling me on the timer that mash out's done, sparge is complete. So it's telling us at the moment I've sparged to 23 litres, so I'm going to continue. And now we've got a boil tracker. Now I will wait to start that till we're actually out of boil, because that's then going to tell me when to put my hops in. So I'm doing the standard 60-minute boil. First hop addition is going to be 30 minutes. Now it's telling me here it's a 40-minute addition of 8 grams of Warrior. Now I have changed the recipe this morning, but because I'd already started the brew day before making that change, it's running off the recipe as it was when I started the brew day. It doesn't seem to want to let me change it. Even though it's got options to change it, it doesn't actually let me change it in that point. So that's something I'll probably need to play around with. Maybe do a might have to do a bit of a search and see if there's some tutorials on actually using that, because it tells me I can change the recipe as I'm going for the day, and it should record what the recipe changes are, but it doesn't actually seem to be doing that. But regardless, let's move on. So I've changed that 40-minute edition of Warrior to Columbus at 30 minutes. Now I did want to use EKG. I want to use Goldings. Reason for that being the red nut lists its hops as EKG, Citra, Amarillo and Fortnight and Mosaic. So in the order of EKG, Citra, Amarillo, Mosaic, Fortnight. Now I still tend to think that you list your hops in order of progression. So that to me says they're using EKG as the bittering hop, as the first addition. Now I don't have any Goldings. I don't know why. That's really weird that I don't have any here, but I can't find any in the freezer. There is a buttload of hops in there. Maybe I just can't find it. But reality is I really need to get in that freezer and sort it out. That could be a video for another bloody day. It's got to happen. But anyway, I'm going back to Columbus. I actually think that will give me a little bit more depth, and the Warrior I think is going to be too clean. I really want something that's going to give some impact. Even though it's a 30-minute edition, it's still going to have some impact on the brew other than just bitterness. So Columbus was the best option I could find of what I had. So that will be at 30 minutes, and I think, let me go back, actually I've changed the recipe in the recipe section. It's going to be 15 grams. Now that wouldn't be normal. That's because the Columbus I've got is 2019 crop. I've had it for about, I've probably had it for 12, maybe 18 months, so it's not super fresh. So I've knocked off the AA acids percentage for the calculation. I've dropped it back to about 10 alpha acids percent instead of sort of 15 to allow for the age and a little bit of degradation. And that brings me to the same IBU had calculated from the Warrior. The Warrior was calculated at 14.8. That's telling me 15.1 for the Columbus. So I'm going to run with that. So 15 grams of Columbus at 30 minutes. Then there will be 38 grams of Amarillo and 15 grams of Simcoe at 5 minutes. Now, I don't know if these beers commercially have late boil hops or whether it's all Whirlpool and dry. But for me, I don't get this big overpowering hop presence. There's more flavour than that hopping what that dry hopping and stuff does. So I tend to think there's some late boil hops in there. So I want to grab a lot of IBU from that back end of the boil. So I'm picking up 15 with the boil, with the bittering charge, and I'm picking up a total of about 22 in that with that late addition. So 37 IBU coming from the boil, which I think is absolutely fine. We're looking at a gravity in the 1070 region, so that's going to support that, no problem, absolutely no problem at all. It's going to be very noticeable, but it's not going to overpower, or it shouldn't. And I think the Simcoe and the Amarillo is going to have a lot of some nice fruitiness and a bit of floral from the Amarillo, and then the Simcoe is going to bring in a little bit of dank and some extra pine, and really, I think it's going to really balance out really nice in the in the core of the beer. Then we'll so at 5 minutes we'll knock the flame out. We'll drop into a Whirlpool. I've got the new Whirlpool arm, which I've got to pull out, and I'll be using it for the first time today, see how it goes. And so basically I will just use the Whirlpool arm to recirculate and get that first temperature drop from that. I won't worry about trying to use the chiller, because the chiller in the Brew stops the Whirlpool in the circulation, so it's sort of counterproductive. I don't want to put it in, have to pull it out and switch to fuck around with arms. So I'll use the Whirlpool arm to circulate and get us down to temperature. Once we get to that sort of 85 degrees, I'll put the heat back on to hold it there, and I will drop in 45 grams of Citra, 30 grams of Amarillo for 15 minutes for that hop stand. Let that go, then bang, then chill from there. And that's our hops for today, and there'll be a bunch of dry hopping on about day 6, which will be, I've got here 26 grams of Amarillo, 40 grams of Mosaic, and 30 grams of Citra. So I am planning on putting this fella into the Brewzilla, so I can use the collection jar on the bottom for the dry hop. As I said, hopefully we should have 17 litres of the target. I'm thinking we're probably going to end up with, by the time if these numbers are correct that I'm getting from the refractometer readings, then I'm going to probably need to water this down by a couple of litres, maybe 2 or 3, which is going to get us up to that 19-20 litre mark. So that's the sort of batch we run on with. But we'll see how we go. We'll get hops in. We'll come back soon when the sample's cooled and have a look how that gravity is going and whether we need to throw some more water in the boil. Right, just come to a boil. Yeah, we shouldn't have a problem. We've got a bit of room here. Now, telling me I've got just a sneak under 23 litres in here. This measurement's not exactly right, but brew fathers tell me I should have about 23.3 litres. I've got maybe 100 ml in the bucket here from the drain of the drain off of the grain, so not going to worry too much about that just at the moment. Right, we're underway. So I'll be our timer on. Alright, and I'll be back in half an hour to drop our first hops in. That's our Columbus going in. And I've added the drained grain water, and there's probably maybe 150, 200 ml in that, so that got us most of that target volume back. So we'll keep going. Righto, we're most of the way through the boil. We've got 13 minutes to go, so you've seen the Columbus go in. I've just put a half a Whirlpool tablet in. 15 minutes. I've got the Whirlpool arm in place, ready to go, and I'm just weighing out the remainder of the hops. So I've got our 5-minute hop addition there, which is the 5 minutes is Simcoe and Amarillo. And now I'm just weighing out the hop stand, which I've got the Amarillo done. Still Citra. And while I'm doing that, big shout out to Kev at the Hopping Mechanism. The Amarillo and Citra are fresh from Kev's in the last week. So Kev's once again looking after little John with a nice hop supply. That's 30 of Citra, we need another 15. And I've got the that's a little too many. Got our sample cooled over here. I'm about to do get a hydro sample on that. Alright, that's where we want to be. Hey, don't need the container in there. Just the hops is all I need in the Yaldi hop sock. Okay, so it's Whirlpool in there. Get that out of the way. Let's do a hydro sample. Yeah, colour's not going to show up there. But I'm pretty happy with the colour. It's looking brownish. It's got a nice red tinge. I think that'll come up nice once it's fermented and work to its right colour. Good. So right, yeah, that's sitting 1070. It'll take maybe 1072, somewhere around there. So we're definitely well over gravity. So that's pre-boil. So we'll definitely be looking to water this down. I might even I might boil up 2 litres now and get that in, and we'll see what sort of a difference that makes. I think this extra 2 litres will probably be enough. I don't mind, it's a bit stronger. It's all good. Anyway, so we'll get this through to the end of the boil. We'll come back and have a look at how that Whirlpool arm's working when it's up and going. Okay, that's the end of the boil. So turn the temperature off. Now set to 85. I'm going to turn off the 500 watt element just so I've got the smaller one on, or just the single element. This Whirlpool arm on. And see whether it's actually going to really... Oh yeah, she's starting to move around. Now I've added a litre and a half of water to this. I'm going to add another litre. I'm going to add another litre and a half. It's just coming to a boil now. Didn't quite make it before finishing here. That's all right. Right now folks, we're in the fermenter. I ended up going to the all-rounder. I had the Brewzilla out and it was actually quite grubby inside, and I really didn't want to be bothered fucking around giving it another clean. So I had an all-rounder sitting here which was clean, so it got sanitised and used. So that's all good. I don't want to use a lot of pressure on this one, so I'm not too worried about having to take pressure off for the dry hop. I'm happy to use pressure, well, just to use pressure just for a transfer, nothing more. I'm not worried about anything more than that, so it's all good. What I've got is about 19.5 litres. It's a bit of trubbing, there's a bit of crud in there. I'm going to lose a little bit to that, but we've ended up with 1060. Now that has ended up lower than what I was going for. These fucking recipes end up all over the fucking shop now. I clearly need to work on how to get this bloody brew farm to work, because the additions it told me it wouldn't make to the original recipe, it is made to the original recipe. So that's fucking real handy. So I was actually looking for 1066. So I've got 1060. Did add 3 litres of water, so I've ended up half a litre out than target and a few points under. So reality is I probably should have just left as it was and added extra water to the fermenter if needed. But I'm happy for 1060. That'll get us 45. I only get as high 5s, 5.8, 5.9%. I would have rather been the 6s, but I'm happy with that. That's fine for now. So she's good to pitch. What's the temperature telling me? Yeah, it's telling me it's sort of 20, nudging towards 19. Yeast has been sitting inside around on 20 degrees. Yeast I'm using Liberty Bell M36 Mangrove Jacks. I've done a starter with the 1 packet, so I will. And it just had a little bit of gentle activity this morning, so it pretty much fermented out. Give that a good mix in, and we'll see if we can get that in without the stir bar going in with it. Which seems to have been successful. The stir bar's still there, that's good. Okay, so with the yeast, that's almost got us to 19 or 20. So I'm happy enough with that. So this is going in the fridge. I'm going to ferment this at 18 degrees is the target. So 2 weeks. So hoping about a month we'll be looking at getting a early taster on this fella. So yeah, a little bit off on the brew, but I think that's my own fault. I probably should have just let it go. Probably would have got a little higher efficiency. It's a bit hard to tell now because I've added extra water to it. So, but I think the conditioning of the malt and the adjusting, getting that pH down, I think has made a difference to the efficiency. So we'll see where she ends up at. So as always, you got any comments or any questions, stick them down the bottom. Patreons, cheers guys. As I said, if you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button down there in the corner. Smash the like button as well. Show me some support. Anyway, so a bit of a taster of this fella. See what she's going like. Okay. Yep. Malty, poppy. Right, I'm looking forward to this one. So, guys, thanks for coming along. See you next time. So, till we're brewing beer, drinking beer, or we talking beer, good brewing.